Let me tell you something most people never realize: the anger is not power. Anger is not strength. Anger is a very dramatic alarm clock ringing in a house you don't even live in anymore. Think about it. Anger is not your enemy. It's not some evil thing that shows up to ruin your day. Anger is just a signal. It's a messenger knocking on your door saying, hey, something inside you feels threatened, ignored, misunderstood, or scared. That's all it is, a signal. Not a command, not a law, not a judge with a gavel saying, you must explode now. And here's where your power lies. Between the moment anger arrives and the moment you react, there is a tiny space, a breath, a heartbeat, a pause so small most people don't even notice it. But inside that space is your freedom, because anger says, fight. Ego says, prove. Pride says, win. But you get to say, no, I choose. You see, the world is very good at pushing buttons. People will interrupt you, disrespect you, misunderstand you, ignore you, criticize you. And if anger were truly in charge, you'd spend your entire life as a puppet, dancing every time someone else pulled a string. But you are not a puppet. You are the one holding the strings. Think about how strange this is. Someone else's bad mood can suddenly control your blood pressure. Someone else's words can steal your sleep. Someone else's behavior can decide what kind of day you're going to have. Does that make sense? When you really look at it, anger is just energy looking for direction, and you are the director. You can aim it outward like a weapon or inward like wisdom. You can let it become shouting, slamming, regretting, or you can let it become clarity. Because anger is often just pain wearing a loud costume. It's disappointment saying, I mattered more than this. It's fear saying, I don't feel safe. It's sadness saying, I wasn't seen. And when you understand that, you stop treating anger like a monster and start treating it like a teacher. You listen. You ask, what is this really about? You breathe long enough for your nervous system to remember you are not in danger, and then something beautiful happens. The fire that once burned bridges starts lighting the way. You respond instead of react. And that is the difference between a life of chaos and a life of mastery. Reaction is automatic. Response is art. Reaction is old programming. Response is consciousness. Reaction says, I am controlled. Response says, I am free. And freedom, oh freedom, feels quiet. It feels like someone cuts the strings inside your chest and suddenly you realize, I don't have to carry this. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to punish myself with rage. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest, it's the calmest. It's the one who can feel anger rise like a wave and still choose to surf instead of drown. So the next time anger knocks you, don't slam the door. Open it gently, say, thank you for the message, and then choose who you want to be. Because anger is a signal, but as you are the decision. Other people's behavior is not a report card about your worth. It's a diary about their inner world. Every word they throw at you, every tone they use, every cold shoulder, every burst of kindness or cruelty, it all comes from a story they're telling themselves about life. A story you did not write, a story you did not approve, and yet somehow we read it like it's our biography. Think about that. A stranger has a bad morning, spills coffee on their shirt, gets yelled at by their boss, remembers a regret from 10 years ago, and then they snap at you in line. And suddenly your mind says, what did I do wrong? Nothing. You just happened to be standing close to someone else's storm. People walk around carrying invisible suitcases. Inside them are disappointments, heartbreaks, insecurities, childhood wounds, unrealized dreams, silent fears. And when those suitcases get too heavy, they burst open in public on you. But that spill is not your fault. Someone criticizes you harshly. Someone dismisses you. Someone tries to belittle you, and your ego rushes in and says, defend. Explain, attack. Fix your image, but pause. Ask yourself something radical. If a mirror is dirty, do you wash your face? No, you clean the mirror. And most of the time, when someone shows you anger, jealousy, sarcasm, disrespect, you're not seeing yourself. You're seeing their reflection, their fear of not being enough, their need to feel superior, their hunger to be seen, their pain looking for a place to land. This doesn't mean you accept abuse. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. Boundaries are sacred. Silence can be powerful. Walking away can be an act of self-respect. But it does mean this: you stop making everything personal. Because when you take everything personally, you make yourself the center of stories that were never about you. And that's exhausting. Here's the strange miracle that happens when you truly understand this: you begin to feel compassion instead of combustion. You start to look at angry people and think, something inside them is hurting. You look at rude people and think they're afraid. You look at controlling people and think they feel powerless. And suddenly their behavior loses its sharp edges. It still may not be okay, but it no longer owns you. Because when you realize that people are acting from their level of consciousness, you stop expecting clarity from confusion. You stop demanding kindness from people who haven't learned how to be kind to themselves. And most importantly, you stop outsourcing your self-worth. No one gets to decide who you are with a sentence. No one gets to define your value with a mood. No one gets to rewrite your identity because they're having a bad life. Your worth is not up for debate. Your peace is not a public opinion poll. And here's the beautiful twist: when you stop reacting to people's projections, they lose their power. Drama needs an audience. Conflict needs a partner. And when you stand there calm, grounded, unhooked, it's like trying to start a fire with wet matches. Nothing catches. You become untouchable in the softest, strongest way, not because the world changed, but because you finally saw the truth: other people's behavior is about their inner weather. And you are the sky. Storms may pass through you, but they do not define you. They never did. The greatest freedom you will ever experience has nothing to do with money, passports, titles, or applause. It has nothing to do with where you live or who knows your name. The greatest freedom you will ever have is the moment you realize you can choose what happens inside you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: you can escape a country. You can leave a relationship. You can change a job. You can reinvent your life 10 times over. But if you cannot control your inner world, you will carry the same prison everywhere you go. Most people spend their lives trying to control the outside. They want people to behave better. They want life to be fair. They want circumstances to cooperate. They want the world to finally line up and say, okay, now you can be peaceful. And the world just laughs. Traffic doesn't care about your schedule. People don't follow your script. Life doesn't ask permission before it surprises you. So if your peace depends on everything going right, you will never be free. But there is another way. There is a quiet revolution that happens when you realize I may not control what happens to me, but I always control what happens within me. That's the moment you stop being a victim of the moment. Because your thoughts shape your emotions shape your actions shape your life, and if you can guide your thoughts, you can guide your destiny. Think about how powerful that is. Two people can live the exact same day, same problems, same traffic, same criticism, same loss. One ends the day bitter, exhausted, angry at the world. The other ends the day wiser, calmer, grateful to still be breathing. Same reality, different inner world. That's not luck, that's mastery. When you control your inner world, you stop being dragged by every feeling that passes through you. You stop treating every thought like it's the truth. You start noticing that the mind is a storyteller and not a very reliable one. It exaggerates, it predicts disasters, it replays old pain, it whispers, "You're not enough." And you finally learn to say, "Thank you for the opinion." And not every thought deserves a throne. Not every emotion deserves a microphone. You can feel anger without becoming it. You can feel fear without obeying it. You can feel sadness without drowning in it. And suddenly you are no longer at war with yourself. That's when life changes. Because when someone insults you and you don't collapse inside, that's freedom. When plans fall apart and you don't fall apart with them, that's freedom. When you are alone and not afraid of your own thoughts, that's freedom. And here's the beautiful secret: when you master your inner world, the outer world starts to lose its grip on you. Praise doesn't inflate you, criticism doesn't destroy you. Success doesn't addict you, failure doesn't define you. You become steady, you become rooted, you become a place where peace can live even in chaos, and people will notice. They'll ask, "How are you so calm? How do you not lose it? How do you keep going?" And you'll smile, because they won't know that the real work is invisible. It happens in the breath you take before you answer, in the thought you release instead of believe, in the choice you make to stay gentle in a hard world. That is the greatest freedom. Not escaping life, but finally being at home inside yourself. Humor is not a distraction from pain. It is one of the most intelligent ways the soul protects itself. It's perspective, wearing a bright costume, walking into a dark room and flipping on the light. Because when you laugh, something inside you loosens its grip. Think about the last time you were furious, heart pounding, thoughts racing, replaying the scene like a movie trailer on repeat, imagining what you should have said, what you'll say next time, how unfair it all is. And then hours later, days later, you suddenly see how small it was. And sometimes you even laugh, not because it wasn't painful, but because you finally saw the bigger picture. That moment right there, that laugh, that's perspective arriving late to the party. Humor is what happens when you zoom out. When you realize you're not just a character in this one emotional scene, you're the director of a very strange, very temporary, very human film. Look at us. We get angry because someone typed the wrong tone in a text message. We lose sleep because someone didn't like our idea. We hold grudges over misunderstandings that happened when both people were tired, scared, or hungry. And from a distance, it's kind of hilarious. Not in a mocking way, in a gentle, compassionate way. Like watching children argue over who touched whose toy. Perspective says this moment is not the whole story. Humor says, and maybe it's not even the serious part, because anger feeds on closeness. It wants your face pressed right up against the problem. So close you can't see anything else. Humor steps back. It lifts you up. It says, let's look at this from 10 years in the future. Will this matter then? Will you remember this argument? Will this insult still have power over your life? Most of the time, no. And suddenly the poison starts to lose its strength, because anger survives on the belief that this is permanent, personal, and catastrophic. Humor whispers, temporary, human, a little ridiculous, and something inside you exhales. Laughter releases the body from the emergency room of the mind. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens. Your nervous system finally hears the message: you are safe. And here's the miracle: when you can laugh at yourself, you become almost impossible to offend. Because offense needs seriousness, it needs ego, it needs the story that says, this means something terrible about me. But when you can smile and think, wow, I'm really dramatic sometimes, the story collapses. You realize half your anger comes from expectations that were never promised. You expected people to always understand you. You expected life to be fair. You expected everyone to behave rationally at all times. And then reality shows up with a banana peel and a kazoo, and instead of screaming, you can laugh. Not because everything is fine, but because you finally understand this is a strange, beautiful, messy experience called being alive. Humor doesn't deny pain, it transforms it. It turns wounds into wisdom. It turns embarrassment into humility. It turns frustration into flexibility. And perspective reminds you that you are not trapped in this moment. You are passing through it. That the same mind that is anger right now will one day barely remember why. So the next time you feel yourself tightened, try this. Pause, step back. Imagine explaining this situation to your future self. Or better yet, to a wise old version of you who has survived heartbreak, loss, and miracles you can't even imagine yet, and listen to how gently they laugh. Not at you, with you, because they know something you're still learning. Life is too short to poison yourself with seriousness. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is smile, and let the anger melt into something lighter, something wiser, something free. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood acts in the human experience. People think it means giving up, surrendering, admitting defeat, pretending something didn't hurt. They imagine weakness, silence, swallowing injustice, allowing others to win. But that is not what letting go really is. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is remembering and choosing not to bleed from it anymore. Because holding on feels like control, but it is actually captivity. When you hold on to anger, resentment, grudges, old conversations, imagined comebacks, you are not punishing the person who hurt you. You are building a prison inside yourself. And then you move in. Think about how heavy that is, carrying yesterday into today, dragging old ones into new mornings, letting people who are no longer present still decide how you feel. That is not strength. That is exhaustion wearing armor. Letting go begins the moment you realize I cannot change what happened, but I can change what happens inside me because of it, and that is courage. Because it takes bravery to release a story that gave your pain meaning. Sometimes anger becomes part of your identity. The one who was wronged, the one who was betrayed, the one who was never treated fairly. And if you let go, who are you without that story? That question scares people more than the pain itself. But here is the truth that heals you are not your wounds. You are the one who survived them. Letting go does not say, it was okay. It says, happened and I choose to live anyway. It says, I will not let this moment become my personality. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to notice how much energy you were spending on something that is already over. Replaying conversations with people who are not in the room. Imagining apologies that may never come. Waiting for closure that may never arrive. And one day, you get tired. Not angry tired, soul tired. The kind of tired that whispers, I want peace more than I want justice. That is the moment mastery begins. Because letting go is not about them. It is about you reclaiming your life. When you forgive even silently, even imperfectly, you are not saying they were right. You are saying, I deserve to be free. When you release resentment, you are not erasing the past. You are choosing not to let it keep rewriting your future. And here is the quiet miracle of letting go. When you stop gripping the pain, your hands are finally free to hold joy, to hold new love, to hold new beginnings. Because you cannot receive what is meant for you if your hands are still full of yesterday. Strength is not in tightening your fist. Strength is in opening it, in trusting that what left your life made space for something kinder, something truer, something that fits who you are becoming. And the most powerful part, when you finally let go, you don't feel empty. You feel light. You feel like someone took off a heavy coat you forgot you were wearing. You breathe deeper. You sleep better. You smile without forcing it. And one day you remember the person who hurt you and your heart stays calm. No fire, no shaking, just understanding. And in that moment, you realize something extraordinary. They no longer control you. The past no longer owns you. The wound no longer defines you. You didn't lose, you healed. And that is not weakness. That is mastery. Peace is not something you are born with or without, like eye color or height. It is not a personality trait reserved for monks, saints, or people who grew up in perfect homes. Peace is not luck. Peace is not something the world hands you when everything finally goes your way. Peace is something you practice every single day, because life is not designed to be calm. It is designed to be unpredictable, noisy, inconvenient, emotional, unfair, and sometimes painfully beautiful. If peace depended on silence, on cooperation, on perfect timing, on people behaving well, no one would ever have it. So real peace begins with a decision, not a feeling. A decision that says, no matter what today brings, I will come back to myself. And then you practice in the smallest, quietest moments. You practice when your alarm goes off and your first thought wants to complain. And instead you breathe and say, I'm still here. You practice when someone interrupts you and you feel irritation rise and you choose patience instead of sharpness. You practice when plans fall apart and your mind starts telling disaster stories and you gently remind it, I don't know the ending yet. This is how peace is built. Not in retreats, not in perfect mornings, but in ordinary chaos. And here is the part nobody tells you at first. Peace feels unnatural because your nervous system is used to tension. Your mind is used to drama. Your identity may even be built around being stressed, reactive, always on edge. So when you start choosing calm, your own thoughts may resist. They'll say, be alert, be angry, be ready to fight. But you keep practicing. You keep returning to the breath. You keep softening your shoulders. You keep letting moments pass without turning them into battles. And slowly, very slowly, your inner world begins to change. You start noticing the space between stimulus and response getting wider. You catch yourself before snapping. You forgive faster, you recover quicker. And then one day you realize something astonishing. Things that used to ruin your entire day barely disturb your morning. That is practice paying off. Because peace is not the absence of emotion. You will still feel sadness. You will still feel anger. You will still feel fear. But those emotions stop living in your house. They become visitors. They knock, they speak, and then they leave. And the most beautiful part, when you practice peace, you start becoming a place of safety. For yourself first, and then for others. People feel calmer around you. Conversations soften, conflicts shorten, your presence becomes medicine you didn't know you were learning to create. And don't misunderstand, practicing peace does not mean you avoid hard conversations. It does not mean you accept disrespect. It does not mean you pretend everything is fine. It means you meet life with clarity instead of chaos, with boundaries instead of bitterness, with courage instead of constant reaction. Because peace is not passive. Peace is strong. It takes strength to pause when you want to explode. It takes strength to forgive when you want revenge. It takes strength to stay gentle in a world that rewards noise. But this strength, this quiet discipline, this daily returning to yourself changes everything. One breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time, and one day without fireworks, without announcements, without anyone clapping, you realize that peace is no longer something you search for, it is something you live. And that is how mastery becomes a habit. If you got even 1% motivation from this video, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel Unstoppable Growth so that I can be encouraged.